Hello. Okay, I'm ready. Are you? Okay, here I go. We are ready to continue. Are you refreshed? Good. Let's begin with the video.
Hi, Esther and Abraham. I just wanted to tell you how much I'm enjoying the deactivation box. And this is my deactivation box, which I use in conjunction with my creation box. And I even put a little essential oil in there so that when I pick it up, it smells good. And I enjoy using it, particularly with the two together. My question for you is about the magnitude of attraction that happens when we drop to the lower part of the scale. I find that I live mostly on the upper part of the scale, and it's really easy for me to reach for appreciation. And I think I really trend towards well-being and feel a lot of love and appreciation for what I have in my life. But things drop me to the bottom of, not the bottom, the middle part of the scale. And I know I want to work myself up, and I do, but it takes me a little time. And I'm wondering, what's the attraction power when you're at the bottom of the scale, when you live mostly at the upper part of the scale? Thank you.
It's an interesting way to put that. Perhaps the easiest way to approach this unusual question is when you really, 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 really want something and you have resistance about it. It feels really, really uncomfortable. So the magnitude of your desire is indicated by the degree of your emotion, both positive and negative. Whereas if it feels wonderful, it's something you really, really care about. If it feels awful, it's something you really, really care about. And the attraction power, this is such an important question. We began there a bit today. The relationship between allowing and resisting is everything that your life is. In other words, the degree of your desire and the degree of its absence are equivalent. And what deliberate creating is about finding that balance and managing it on purpose. In other words, the law of attraction is responding. Start again. Your experience is about your managing of your own point of attraction. We do want to say something that may be part of the basis of this question. As you launch rockets of desires in one resistant moment after another, and your inner being then turns undivided, pure, not resistant, attention toward your desire, that's true leverage. That's why the well-being of this planet and of the eternal you is so dominant. But as you're in this body, when we say you get what you think about whether you want it or not, we are talking simply about the airtime or the amount of trending that you are giving or doing toward one end of the stick or the other. We wouldn't spend much time thinking about that. We would spend more time thinking about feeling good and doing something about not feeling good. Let's see another.
Hi, Abraham. Thank you for answering all of our questions. Can I get your help understanding knee-jerk, needy responses to other people? I love when you tell us not to calibrate to other people like our lover, to calibrate to our inner being. When I feel needy, I know that means I have work to do to get there. I'm just wondering if it means also that it's good we're going slow so I can calibrate with my inner being. The lower half of the scale part of me feels like maybe I should talk to this person and like come to an agreement about how much can you communicate. But I feel like that kind of goes counter to what you've been telling us. Thank you so much.
We agree with you. It is counter to what we know is of value to you. So, hearing what you have to say and feeling the way you feel about it, the first card that we would write if we were standing in your physical shoes is neediness, inactive. The next card that we would write is calibrating to others, inactive. The next card we would write is such sensitivity to others, inactive. We'll read one here. My husband is verbally abusive, angry, entitled, and generally very difficult. I've been listening to you for quite a while and have heard some of your thoughts on relationships with difficult people. My understanding is it is my responsibility to be and stay in the vortex. And if I find it difficult next to my abusive husband, this is only due to my lack of self-discipline to remain in the higher scales of the emotional scale. And if I do manage to stay in the higher ranges of the emotional scale for a long period of time, then by attraction will change and the universe will either bring me someone else, end it naturally, or my husband will change. Is this right? Well, that's more or less the options in the way that things would change for you. But your impression of what we've been saying to you is a little harsher than we would like you to feel it. We don't want you to feel that what we're saying is, it's all up to you and you've got to get it right if you want anything to change. In other words, that is how it is. Your point of attraction is your job. But a softer approach to it would serve you better. You said, my husband is verbally abusive and angry and entitled and generally very difficult. And so, in order to soften your exposure to that, in order to deactivate your awareness of those things, because it's like you see it, you don't want it, you attract it, you see it, you don't want it, you attract it. And we know some of you are shouting, but what about the other person? Abraham, can't you tell him to back off or be nicer? And we say, if we were talking with him, we would be encouraging him to deactivate the things that are bothering him, and he would feel nicer. But we're talking to you, and so we're encouraging you to deactivate the things that are keeping you from feeling good. And we know this for sure. There's a whole lot of moments of activation and trending that are going on within you that have nothing to do with this person in the room or actually performing those things in the moment. So we would write things like, remember fewer abuses. Now that is something that goes in the creation box, isn't it? Remember fewer abuses. So what's on the other end of that stick? What is it you're wanting to deactivate? Awareness of abuse. Awareness of abuse. Now that's easier said than done when it's happening. But what about memory of abuse? Conversations of abuse. You said something interesting. You said entitled. You called him entitled. So what might you deactivate? Because clearly you don't think that he's deserving. He's acting entitled, like he gets to run the show and he gets to have it his way and he gets to make all of the decisions, we're sure if we're walking step by step with you and listening to as you are moving through your day, there would be a lot of things that you could put on your cards. Like self-pity. Martyrdom. Now hear us. We're not saying that you're without reason. We're not saying that you're without validated, justifiable reason. But we are saying it's active in your vibration, and so you can't get otherwise from the new person or from the existent person. Martyrdom. Inactive. Let's watch another video.
Hello, Abraham. I'm writing to ask, and even if you don't pick my video, I'm pretty sure I'll get my answer, but I hope you do. There's some construction that's right behind my building, but my window faces the construction. There used to be businesses there, and they've torn them down. We don't know what's coming up because there's no information for that. So my concern is that they're going to put up a skyscraper or something, and it's going to block my sun. I have lots of lighting, and my plants love it. I love it. So I'm just concerned. Yesterday I said I'm giving it to my manager, and I felt good about that. However, I want to know what can I do when the concern pops up to deviate from that. Are there any processes I can work on in the meantime? So I look forward to your reply. I know it's coming. Thank you.
Well, you have given it over to your manager until you take it back with your concern. Which is it? Have you released it to your manager? Or is it on your list of things to do as you find concern and worry? So we would write a card that's in the attitude of releasing or deactivating or rendering inactive. Unnecessary speculation, negative speculation. We would write on a card, making stuff up to bother myself with. We would write on the card, trending against my true desire. Because when that's not active in your vibration, your life experience will happen and unfold in a way that pleases you. Can't you feel the freedom and the freshness in unburdening yourself with all of these things that you can't do anything about? In other words, if you feel like you have to control the behavior of those around you, even to the point of controlling the activity of a construction site, what you want to do is control your point of attraction, regardless of what's going on in your environment. And when you've got that going on, your environment will evolve in the most amazing, unprecedented ways to surprise and delight you. Let's watch another video.
Love you more. What would we do without you, Abraham? I love, every morning I start the day with something of yours, and I always get the right one at the right time. But there's a part of me that still feels stuck, like I'm stuck in mud. I'm a creator, obviously we all are, but I am a creator. I want to create a book of my mom's paintings I've already written, she passed, but I know she's channeling this. And we created this amazing book around some of the paintings. But I feel stuck and I don't know what to do next in terms of the tech part. And I'll get an idea, I think it's inspired, and then I either drag my feet or I think, no, that's probably not the right thing. Well,
All right. So we would write need to control, inactive. That's big for you. Because what you want is to trust the universe. You said, drag my feet. Awareness of confusion. Inactive. Criticism of self when I feel confused. We didn't ask you to release the confusion. We asked you to release self-criticism. We didn't ask you to stop being confused. We just asked you to lighten up on yourself. Let's see another.
Hi, Esther and Abraham. Happy New Year. I'm currently recovering from breast cancer. I went through a year of heavy treatment and I'm slowly and gradually recovering. But there are times where I have worrying thoughts. If I get a headache or if I get a pain in my back or anything like that, I start to think, is this really just a headache or could it maybe be the cancer coming back? And I start to worry. I'm wondering if you could offer me some soothing words that could help me in those moments. And also, in general, I think I am trending in the direction of well-being most of the time. But I do wonder if when I have those worrying thoughts, if I could be taking myself off track too much or more than I think I am. And that maybe that could then cause the cancer to come back. If you could offer me anything on that and let me know if I am trending as much in the direction of well-being as I think I am, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Well, we don't think that you're trending as much in the direction of well-being as you think you are when you listen back to this conversation. In other words, it's an easy thing, isn't it? And easy because that's where the trending has been, to have experienced something unwanted and then to kind of be in a place of expectation. Expectation is just a belief. A belief is just a thought that you continue to think. And so, yes, it's logical that there would be trending like that. And what's wonderful is that you have awareness when you are trending like that. So this process that we're talking about here today is tailor-made for something like this because it's something that's coming up often because it matters a lot to you. And when it comes up, there's a strong recognition that it's come up because you really don't feel good, and you've already made a strong decision that you want to do something other than continue that trending because you understand point of attraction and all of that. And so we want to tell you something that Esther said to someone the other day, and she's been thinking about this a lot as she has been recovering from the shingles that were so uncomfortable for such a long period of time. And her greatest awareness was this. Clearly, I had some things going on vibrationally that I wasn't owning up to, that I wasn't admitting, that maybe I was covering up with words or smiles or activities or staying busy. But clearly there were some things that were active in my vibration, more active than I knew, for me to attract something so debilitating. And so we want to say the same thing to you, and we want you to feel the clarity of that. And then we want you to enjoy the gentle and gradual and certain releasing of those things that you weren't aware of before, that you are more aware of now. So the thing that jumped out the most, and we know that this is something that's happening with you a lot, and we would write it on a card to put into the inactive box. Unnecessary speculation. Unnecessary negative speculation. Now, we've written that on a few cards here already today, but that's the thing that we most want you to be aware of. It's unnecessary, and it's negative, and it's speculation. In other words, Esther wrote several cards. They're in this box somewhere in the layers that she's dropped in, and it's fun for her to have the things that you're releasing in her box along with all of the things that she's releasing. It's a good box to put things in it that you want to be inactive, because there's a good trend going with this box being a deactivating box. But one of the things that she has put in there with lots of different subjects coming at them from lots of different directions is making stuff up for no good reason. Putting words in the mouths of others that they're probably not even speaking. Thinking that I know what that person is thinking under such and such a situation. Thinking that I'm picking up on a vibe that I'm actually making up. So one of the cards that's in there again and again and again is making stuff up that doesn't help. Inactive. All right, we'll read a couple here. I wanted to get a bit more clarity on the difference between focusing on the lack of something and focusing on having my desire. That's what this day is really about, isn't it? On the one hand, I've been imagining myself living in my dream house, for example. I never force this, and when this image comes into my head, it feels good, and I run with it. But I wonder if by imagining this often as I do, this is what you're calling the lack of it. Really, that isn't the lack of it. That's the presence of it. If it feels good and you run with it, that's really, really good. The lack of it feels like disappointment. The lack of it feels like worry. So what you're describing isn't lack of it. And then you say, am I better off not putting my attention on my desires? You're always good to put your attention on your desires if when you do it, it feels good to you. And you know what you're all going to begin to notice? Those of you who actually have fun playing this game, your desires are going to begin to feel better and better and better and better as you cease the trending that has been holding them down. We'll read another. I wanted to do a video question, but I have a severe skin condition, so I decided against it. Clearly, it's not what I want. But since it's literally right in my face, it's difficult not to focus on it and to change the subject. I feel like my skin condition is not related to my attitude towards my skin, but rather a symptom of something else. Well, now it started out as a symptom of something else, but then it's like Esther's shingles were not about shingles. She wasn't worried about getting the shingles. But after she had shingles on her body and the discomfort of, she said it was like being skinned alive. Dramatic, we know. Now, a lot of her attention was on shingles. It's hard not to put your attention upon something that is, as you say, really in your face. But still, that is the work. Finding a little snatch of feeling appreciation here and there, which is harder to do. And really, friends, that's why we're talking about this process the way we are. There are a lot of things in your world today that your attention has been called to, or that you have allowed your attention to be upon. And you've been trending in attitudes of pushing against more things all at once than ever before in your life. So there is an erosion, stronger erosion of your moments of feeling good than ever before by almost everyone who is focused upon your planet, especially those who have access to news, information, and life, lots of life around you. So there has never been a more valuable time for you to choose what you allow to be active. Because here's the statement that we've been offering to all of you for quite a long while. The majority of your vibration as a human is because of what you are observing. And we're wanting to help you change that trend. So as you catch yourself, as our friend earlier said, in real time, feeling negative emotion in response to the pure positive energy or pure desire that your inner being is holding upon your desire, and your less than pure desire, as you catch yourself in real time in the act of resistance, and then you stop and say, I choose less resistance right now deliberately. And because I choose it, I'm going to go about it in this way. I'm going to release resistance about this right now. I'm going to render right now this little piece of resistance that I've stumbled upon and that I'm aware of. I'm going to render it inactive right now. And then write your statement and off you go. Let's see another.
Hello, Abraham. My name is Janet. I have a question about my vortex. I've noticed that as I'm aging, I'm in my mid-40s, that it's getting harder to get into my vortex and stay there, as it wasn't quite so much when I was in my 20s, when it was very easy, very carefree. I'd like to know if that's something that is a natural progression, that as we age, it just becomes a bit trickier to stay in your vortex, or if it's a matter of me having to practice more every day. You'd probably say it's me. So I'm going to ask, how do I do that every day to just stay locked in there? I really like the woman that I was when I was in my 20s, and I'd like to meet her again. So if you have any advice on my vortex and just how to stay there, that would be great. Thank you.
We're really appreciating your offering here, and there's something really important that you're asking about that will benefit everyone as we chew on this for just a little bit. And the answer to your question is, does it get harder as we get older, or does it get harder as we move through time? And the answer to that is usually, but it doesn't need to. And the reason the answer is yes, usually, is because as you move through time, you accumulate more of those things that you remember, that you ponder, that you speculate about, that you talk about. And so it isn't that you're longing for the woman you were in your 20s because for so much reasons of youth or reasons of vitality. There was less resistance then, and therefore your desires were pure, and therefore your life was unfolding more easily in the direction of your desires. And that can happen at any time in your life. It is a matter of, start again. It may seem, of all the things that we've talked about here today, this is the thing that we want most for you to hear. It may seem that this is a process that we are teaching you to help you undo habits of thought. But that is not the case. This is a process whereby you cease to continue them. In other words, think about the process of meditation. One of you sent a question about that. The process of meditation is the ultimate deactivation process. That's the process where if you are able to quiet your mind, you render all thoughts inactive. So there's no competing vibration to your inner being who's focused purely upon your desires. So when you meditate, you cease resistance and you allow pure motion forward toward the things you want. But you can't meditate all day long. Your mind wants to be active. So this is the process whereby you encourage your active mind to be active in the direction of things that you care about and things that you want, rather than things you don't like and things you're trying to stop. That's what you're looking for. It's such a lovely life when you are free of sloppy thinking, say it a different way, accidental trending, say it a different way, creating by default, say it a different way. When you are free of unnecessary resistance. Such a wonderful life when you are free of unnecessary resistance. And this process will free you. Not all at once. Got to be really nice to yourself. That's the card that Esther dropped in over and over and over and over and over again. Releasing self-judgment and self-criticism, as well as criticism of others when she would catch herself doing it, relative to someone she knows and loves, or relative to someone she's just observing, or relative to someone on television, or something on television, or something in the news. Catching herself unnecessarily cramping her own style, limiting her own motion forward. And in just a matter of, it's barely been 2 weeks that Esther's really been adding to her box. Her feelings of elation are so much more frequent. Her recognition of beauty is so much more often. The intensity of the things that she is observing with pleasure is more delicious. Her moment-to-moment sense of well-being is enhanced. Someone wrote something so beautiful about being held in the arms of someone who really cares about you. And it's like that in the meditation CD. There's a phrase that we offered, like being wrapped in a warm blanket of well-being. As you cease keeping active those things that disallow your security, your knowledge, your sense of self and worthiness, as that tips little by little by this deliberate choosing that we are encouraging here, you're in for a rampage of self-appreciation and appreciation of life. Yeah, let's see another video.
Hi guys, from Minnesota, where it's super cold today. My question is around clarity and inner guidance and belief. These teachings have been sort of the primary focus of my life for the past 10 years. And I'm wondering, could my inner being ever guide me to something that might require cleanup later? Meaning, does my inner being think about my delicious unfolding, or does it know that sometimes it's leading me to things that might actually end up being trouble for me later? The second questions I have are, sometimes it feels like there's some discrepancies in the teachings, which I think are about my beliefs. The first being, one, you say, source is always there for you, we're always here. But it also feels like you're saying, don't ask us for help, because if you ask for help, you won't be in the mode to receive. So hopefully you can help. Thanks so much. Bye.
Well, the first part of your question, we want to address this first, and as we do this thoroughly, it will answer the second part of your question. Your inner being is never calling you to trouble to teach you a lesson. None of that ever. But it could be accurate to say your inner being is calling you through trouble. Have you heard us say that through time, as our friend was talking about earlier, appreciating her 20s and not as much more recently, as you move through time and life experiences, you pick up resistance and throw it on your own trail. As we talk about the path of least resistance, the path of most allowance, your inner being is always calling you toward what you want, but you cannot be called from someplace you're not. So if you are, for whatever reason, having a moment where you are in the lower half of the emotional scale, worried about something or fearful of something, your inner being, who is always calling you, who is always aware of you, who is always calling you toward the things you want, is calling you from where you are to where you want to be, and you're moving through resistance. Not resistance that your inner being is assigning to you, but resistance that you have assigned, that your inner being is aware of, that your inner being knows you can overcome or pass through. Does that make sense? You're being called through resistance, through your path of least resistance to the things that you want. Your inner being is always there for you. There is no contradiction or discrepancy in what we're teaching about that. But here's what you're getting at. If you are on the lower half of the emotional scale, and that's when you've decided that you're really going to goose up your desire, what happens is it just makes the intensity of the resistance greater. Have you ever had someone, some well-meaning person, trying to counsel you or guide you or get you to stop doing something or get you to start doing something? And don't you find yourself rising up in resistance? Don't you find yourself more explaining or trying to justify your position or rationalizing or defending? It encourages defensiveness in you, only you're playing both parts. It's like you're using your desires to beat up on yourself in a moment in time when you won't let yourself move. So this process is sort of the other end of that. This is the process where you deliberately get some of the things out of the way so that you can move more easily on a path that is more allowing and less resistant. Your question was such a clear, good one. You've evoked a clear answer from us. We're sure you heard it. All right. Let us read another. I own and manage a small business, and I'm seeking clarity on how to relate to my employees. I do find myself inclined to be a good, thoughtful employer, and my sense is that our actions reflect that most of the time. I know I can't help how people respond to me, but I do have this fantasy that our employees will appreciate our contributions and our workplace, and will demonstrate that appreciation more frequently. Sometimes that happens, but often I find myself surrounded by many differing inputs, moods, and energies. And all this adds up to be kind of draining. And I'd really like to implement a new way of being in relationship with my employees. What's my role as leader of my small business? How do I manage a variety of inputs? That may be the best question of the day. How we're underlining it, emphasizing it. How do I manage a variety of inputs? That's exactly what this process is about. How do I manage inputs coming from ungrateful employees or unappreciative employees, or employees that are on the lower half of the scale, or employees that are fighting with someone at home and taking it out on everything at work? Or how do I manage this plethora of vibrations that are surrounding me all the time? How do I manage it? By deactivating the part of me that matches it. By deactivating the part of me that lets it yank my chain or ring my bell. By tripping over it and being aware that I've tripped, and then by doing something about it, by deliberately choosing differently than my tripping pointed toward. So, for example, let's say that you're coming from the lower half of the emotional scale and you're a little extra tired. And you're feeling a little underappreciated, maybe a lot underappreciated. And you bump up against a feeling of someone not feeling any appreciation. In fact, the opposite is what you seem, they seem entitled rather than appreciative. And you caught yourself in that mode, tripping over that in that moment. Now, we didn't say you put it in them. We're saying it's active in you. And if it weren't, you wouldn't have noticed that it's in them. But you did notice, which means you're tripping over it, which means you are there, which means it's active within you, which means it would serve you to deactivate it. So, since you've just discovered it, again, just now, you might write on a card something like, with the attitude of releasing this, need for appreciation from others. I'd like to deactivate that. I'd like to be a self-starter in that. I'd like to get all of that from my inner being. I'd like to be the offerer of it so much that I don't even notice if it's not coming my way. Now, in this case, we did some deactivation and some activation and some deactivation and some activation. In other words, we did some inactive box and some creation box stuff. That's always what you're doing. You're always choosing more of the creation box and less of the what you're wanting to deactivate, but it's all on the same continuum, isn't it? And it's all within your range to focus, isn't it? So, how do I manage a variety of inputs? By being more deliberate about your output. By being more deliberate. If you're deliberate of your output, you control your awareness of inputs. I would like to deactivate needless hurt feelings. One card at a time. It will shift for you. You will see. Let's see another video.
Hi, Abraham. You say that all relationships are eternal. Can you please explain more about this sentence? Thank you very much.
You come from non-physical with powerful intention. And all of the relationships that you had before you came into this physical body, you still have. That's your inner being. That's that gang of source that we talk about all of the time. And then, as you move through this experience, and you meet this one, and you give birth to this one, and you marry this one, and you kiss this one, and you criticize that one, and you adore that one, you establish a relationship that has two ends of the stick. In other words, once it has been active in your vibration, the potential for activation is forevermore there. Haven't you noticed that sometimes you catch yourself thinking about someone that you haven't thought about for a long time? Well, why is that? Because there's still something active in your vibration about them. All right, so now, the answer to your question. The reason that every relationship is eternal is because every time you have exposure to life, you launch a rocket of desire that your inner being focuses upon and maintains vibrational awareness of and connection to eternally. And that stands as a touchstone to assist you in staying up to speed with the never-ending, evolving you that you are. So maybe a better way to hear the answer to this question is, the reason that all relationships are eternal is because each of them have contributed to the you that you now are, and your inner being will never release you from who you are. Good to know, isn't it? Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for the guidance provided in the last week's broadcast. I was one of the stalled out individuals you spoke of. Wow, message received. Things broke loose for me in that conversation, just as you said. I feel so energized about this new tool in my toolbox to intentionally deactivate thoughts that are on the lower end of the scale. Such a simple yet powerful tool. I can already feel how powerful this approach is for me in managing my trending. We chose this to read to you because we liked that phrase that we had not spoken, that you found, that is vibrationally accurate and a step beyond anything that we said. Managing my trending. That's what this is. This is managing your trending. Here's another. I was wondering if there was something that I can do to lose weight and increase my energy. A specific action or process that may help me achieve this goal. Exactly what we've been talking about all here. So here are some things that you could put in the inactive box. My self-consciousness. Better said, my negative opinion of self. Inactive. Self-criticism. Or inactive. Criticism of self. We know it seems too simple, but it isn't. Let's watch another.
Hi, Abraham. So I've been trying the inactive box, and I've liked it as far as if I have like one specific thought that I know I can write and put aside. But the problem is I have some areas of my life that I've got so much practice negative thinking or momentum around that it's really hard for me to unravel and set aside a specific thought. Or I feel like it's an endless process. Like I could be writing down piles and piles of negative thoughts around some subjects. So I'm wondering, was there something better to do in that situation? Easier to do? I have some things I'd really like to turn my thinking around on, but I just don't know where to start. And I feel kind of overwhelmed when it's been practiced for so long. Thank you.
Well, your thinking will turn around automatically when you're no longer pulling it in the negative direction. We liked your phrase, piles and piles and piles. Esther's got piles and piles and piles in her inactive box. But here's the difference between what we're talking about with this inactive box and what you're talking about with piles and piles and piles that feel endless to you. If you take a softer, more gentle, more general approach to this, it will go very well for you. You see, feel the difference between getting to the problem of what's really bothering me and just deciding not to be bothered by that. Feel the difference between getting to the bottom of the issue and just rendering the issue unimportant to you for now. You said, is there something better? Yeah, this process is better. It's way better. We'll read. I'm tired of ignoring my inner being. I'm tired of not following my inner being's desires, which are your desires, by the way. Your inner being is holding steady for you the evolution of your desires. Yes, they are the desires of your inner being because your inner being desires your success and your happiness, but they are your desires. I'm tired of not following my inner being's desires about my desires. I know what my inner being wants and I don't follow. You mean I know what my inner being is encouraging and I don't follow. What is it that's stopping me, Abraham? It's all this stuff that we've been talking about here today. It's stuff like that. So let's write some cards that soften that. I'm tired of ignoring my inner being. So I want to deactivate being so hard on myself. I want to deactivate criticizing me. I want me to no longer criticize me. I want to deactivate that. I want to deactivate thinking this is hard. I want to deactivate discouragement. I want to deactivate feeling tired of trying. Ooh, such precious things in this deactive box. So many things not necessary to your experience. So many things less active than they were when we started. This is really good work we're doing together here today. Work that you don't need us to do. Work that you want to do in real time. Keep the cards handy. Keep the box handy. Sometimes the box isn't where Esther is, and neither are the cards. And she will think, I'm going to drop that in the box when I get home. And every time so far that she's decided to do that, as soon as she walks in the door, she writes a card, sometimes more than one. It's a little bit like, have you ever had the experience where you were going to the grocery store and you made a list, but then you forgot to bring the list with you, but you gathered up everything on the list because you'd taken the time to decide it? It's a bit like that. Hi, Abraham. I've put many cards in my inactive box this last week, since the last broadcast. What I've noticed is that the process has brought on a keener awareness that I'm trending towards blame. Is this awareness helpful? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I feel like bringing a keener awareness to my negative trending, which I already knew about, might amplify it. Well, that's what we're talking about. In other words, it could, if you were trying to get over it all at once, or if you were trying to figure out if your blame is real, or if you were trying to justify your blame or defend it. But this is different what you're doing here. You're not defending blame. You're not in competition with someone else. I'm right and you're wrong. Instead, you're deactivating blame because it doesn't feel good. You're just choosing blameless by deactivating blame. It's the mental approach that you're making to it that matters. You make a good point. It's a point we've been making with all of you about don't push against anything, about there's no assertion, there's no stopping something. So what's the subtle difference here? It's like amplifying the choice that you're making. It's owning that you're offering, owning that you've caught yourself in the moment, in the act of resistance, and then saying, I choose something different. I'm going to let this go. Humans have an expression, Esther has heard it as long as she can remember, You say, let go and let God. And we say, go with the flow. We say, turn your canoe downstream instead of fighting the current and trying to paddle upstream. We say, ease and flow. We say, allow, but we also say, path of least resistance. In other words, we acknowledge that there's allowing and that there's resistance on this path, and that it's the same path. And that you get to decide how much resistance you're willing to endure, or how many choices you're going to make around it. This is about you not defending your positions in an attitude of needing to prove yourself right. This is about you allowing the rightness that is already you to prevail and demonstrate the rewards and the blessings and the benefits to yourself that are naturally flowing to you when you're not doing that thing that doesn't let them naturally flow. We're not going to be real heavy for a long time on this deactivation box, but we're going to resurrect it frequently enough. Esther watched a person who does a walking tour and talks about current events or what's going on in his life. And he was so on the lower half of the scale and in such a terrible frame of mind and mood that he was just sort of grumbling about everything, mostly the pandemic and the things that it is, the ways that it is disrupting his life. And Esther's been having such good fun with her deactivation of things that bother her, and she's coming to adore this inactive box that has been so clarifying for her. And she thought, if I were to talk to him personally, could I help him clear his vibrational atmosphere of all of the clutter, of all of this protest and unhappiness and disappointment and anger? And Esther thought, I don't know if I had a month to converse with him, if I could make much headway with him right now when he's in that mode. But he's not always in that mode, and neither are you. The times that you feel the most resistance, the most taken advantage of, the most martyrdom, the most discomfort, that's not the best time for this box, because it'll make you want to defend your position, and it will be counterproductive. But when you catch yourself in that early negative thought that hasn't trended so far, not in this moment. Oh, it's trended way far before, but it hasn't trended that far in this moment. And you realize that you're starting a trend and you don't want it to get going. That's when you apply this. Do you have another video?
Hi, Abraham. Happy birthday to me on this day of this live stream, and happy, powerful roll that we're all on. Happy, powerful wave. Happy creating, happy creation, happy dreams that are just unfolding. I know that this is happening to me and to everyone who's learning to allow through your teachings, through our own experience. And the euphoria is permeating my being like rainbow light pouring out every single one of my cells. And I want a birthday present from you. I want a rampage. I want a rampage of me. I want a rampage of who I am, which is a rampage of who we all are. A rampage of who we are as consciousness, who we are as creator. a rampage that's just this momentum riding this powerful wave of expansion.
We could not have offered a more spectacular rampage if we sat here all afternoon and reached for more words. We saved you to last, dear heart. Happy birthday. Because the way you feel is what all of this is about. Nothing less than that will do. There is great love here for you. We've enjoyed this interaction more than any that has come before. There is great love here for you and fantastic expectation that you've picked up a piece of valuable processing that is going to serve you well and yield to you immediate results. And for now, we are complete.